Okay, here's our first video today. This is going to be talking about an internal cut in jewelry. And what an internal cut is, anytime that you cut a design out of the inside portion of a piece of metal and you do not have an open cut area to the outside edge. So all these are internal spaces within this piece of metal that have been cut out. And that's what I'm going to demonstrate today. So this is just one sample of an internal cut. This happens to be a positive image, and in around a negative space and negative area around it. You can see this buffalo, and another one I happen to have. It's not going to focus now. There it is. This is a negative image. Okay, a negative image is a positive space. Fish. And there's just two samples of an internal cut, different variations. You can use this internal cut idea many different ways. This happens to be an internal cut in a piece of copper, and it's a positive image of a deer. Okay. Now this also is done with enamel, a technique called champouvé. So it's a kind of a fun way to work with an internal cut. Internal cuts can be used in other ways too. You can use them as decoration around a stone in a bezel. Okay, the backing. Tarnish there, needs to be cleaned. And another piece is you can, another bezel, you can decorate the back. In this case it's a dinosaur bone in the front, so we had to have a dinosaur footprint in the back. Another example. And for my more advanced students I have the inlay. So what you do, an internal cut, and you fill that internal cut with another piece of metal, and it's soldered together with the back. You can see the soldering, and it's ready to go. So what I'm going to need for this internal cut today, I'm going to need obviously a jeweler's saw. So I'm going to turn the camera. Okay, and here I have the jeweler's saw in this area. Come back out. Here's my jeweler's saw. You have a blade. Okay, this is a fine blade, little tiny blade, skinny, heat-treated steel, little teeth on this blade. I'll talk about putting that blade in the saw. Next thing is the piece of metal that I'm cutting. A lot of times I will glue my design from a piece of paper, glue it right onto the metal using rubber cement. I have a design. And you can see I've pierced holes. I use a drill press to do this. There's other tools you can make pierced holes with. And you can see I've cut out one portion of it already. And that's how I get into that space with the jeweler's saw. And I'll do this, I'll demonstrate this in a second. Okay, here's another one that is a little more finished. I'm going to demonstrate how to do the file work to clean that up, and then we'll talk about polishing maybe in another segment. Okay, so I have my jeweler's saw with the blade. I have a piece of wax. I'm going to need wax, and now I'm going to go to my bench pin. My bench pin happens to be connected to the table. It's a little different setup than what you'll see in class. Okay, there it is. Now, first step with the jeweler's saw, widen this out a more. First step is that I'm going to put the metal onto the saw blade. In order to do that, I need to open the chuck. So now I have a little tension on this blade right now, so I need to compress the saw. And I'll compress the saw by pushing it against the table. And to do that, I use my hip bone, lean into it a little bit, and then I can release the pressure, and you'll see the saw blade just comes into the chuck a little bit here. I want to slide this piece of metal on here. I'm going to do a very small area. I'll do this little section here. So I'll put the blade through at that point. Very careful now, because I have to get the blade in the chuck. I want to compress the saw again. As I compress the saw, it pushes the blade up into the chuck further. Tighten it down, hand tight. You may find that when you go to loosen these, that you can't loosen them. You may use pliers to loosen it, but not to tighten it, because you can strip it out when you tighten it. Alright, now, this is a giant spring. So what's happening is it's compressing. I compress it, and I put the saw blade in, tighten it down, and it's wanting to expand. And as it tries to expand, it pulls the blade taut. Should sound almost like a little guitar string. Now the teeth on this saw are facing down and away from the back of the saw. So my finger will snag a little on the way up, but it'll slide down the teeth on the way down. And that's why you want to make sure you have your saw set up. If you have the blade upside down, it makes cutting very, very difficult. Okay, and now, let's see, I'll begin here by doing the cutting. And I want to zoom in a little bit on there so you can see it. Okay, there we go. And you want to be comfortable. I like to have the bench pin above my belly button. It's very comfortable. And my first step is going to be cut to the nearest corner. And I can go down kind of to the side and then go into that corner. And I'm right-handed, so I want to work in this space. You can see I have a slot on here, and this fits inside that slot. I have room to work. I can turn my saw within that space. And that's going to support my metal on all sides in the bench pin. Begin with an up-down stroke, a little bit of light pressure going forward. Not a lot. Little saw teeth cannot take a lot of stress. You'll notice I'm holding this. I know you can't see it, but I'm holding it basically with my forefinger and my thumb. Very, very light pressure, letting the weight of the saw drop. And I'm following the line, the black line on the edge, cutting out the light space. Now, once I've gotten a certain distance, I can stop and look and check. And right now I'm ready to make a turn. This turn is called a back cut. It's going to be a 90-degree turn. So in order for you to see this, I want to zoom in. Okay, so let's zoom in. Let's see if it focuses now. Well, maybe not. There we go. Okay. My amateur filmmaking here. Alright. Now, my next step, because I'm cutting and I'm going to make a turn, I'm going to add a little bit of lubricant to the blade. Now, I already did that before I started, but you didn't see that. I'm using a beeswax, and I'm going to rub it up the back of the blade and up and down the back. Just a few times like that. Doesn't take a lot. Try not to clog the teeth with the beeswax. And what I'm going to do now is I'm cutting forward and I stopped. Once I've stopped, I want to make a turn, and the back of the blade is going to kind of spin in a counterclockwise fashion. And when I do that, I'm going to reorient the blade to go back the other direction. So, and as I go up and down, I'm putting pressure against the side of the blade. And I'm turning the saw. It may take about 20 strokes to do this turn. I don't know how many strokes I've taken, but okay, so I've gotten complete turned. And you can see the frame is near you. I'm going to reorient the whole thing very carefully without twisting the blade. Getting it back to the correct direction. I'm going to go forward again. And I'm going to cut. Right along the leg of the bison. And I have a little turn to make. A little bit of a back cut. Turning my saw blade, going forward a couple strokes. Going to turn back cut the other direction. Pressure's against the back of the blade during the back cut. And I turn my saw to make the cut. And one more back cut. Turn to the left again. Pressure's against the back of the blade. And I'm going to go forward. So, a couple strokes and I've moved quite a bit. Okay. Just to show you how much I've moved, I'm going to zoom in and look over top and see if you can see it looking straight down. If the camera will stay in place, which it may or may not. I have it on a special stand, but there we go. Okay, so now you can see it from up there. Okay, I'm going to make another back cut, and I want to come back to the bottom of the other foot. So up and down. Can I add some beeswax? I'm not sure. Just make sure I got some beeswax on there. And here comes my turn. Spinning the saw up and down, turning the saw. There we go. I've completely changed directions. Probably 160 degrees, 150 degrees. Yeah, maybe 140. Okay. Overdo it there. Alright. And now I want to cut back to the bottom. And follow the line. See? If you feel like you're hitting wood, you have to stop what you're doing and readjust your saw. Make sure it's in the middle of the circle. Now I have one more back cut to make. Again, I'm going to go to the left. Back of my saw is going to swing to the right. Pressure it against the back of the blade. Make the turn. Just enough room to get the saw around this piece of metal. This is just going to happen to be a bolt buckle when I'm done instead of a pendant, but a little bit bigger than what everybody else is working on in my class. And now across the bottom, and I'm done. That went a little quicker than I thought. Okay, so I've just taken out that whole entire space, and now I'm ready to do some file work. That'll be another demo that I show you. Now I want to do this continually to do these other pieces, finish all of those with the jeweler's saw. Once I have them all done, then I'm ready to begin the filing process and do some cleanup. We'll stop there.